So get a load of this. NATO apparently has been attacked. Its critical infrastructure has been attacked. And who are they blaming it on? The Russians. Yes, if you didn't know, one of the biggest wars is still raging in the background and nobody is talking about it. Guys, I have information to share with you today that is going to make the hair stand up on the back of your neck. You are not going to hear a lot of this stuff anywhere else, and certainly not all in one place, but we have some exclusive insider information about what is going on in Israel, about what's going on with our strategic STRATCOM nuclear defense. Some very suspicious activity is taking place around the world right now as every military and their dog descends upon this powder keg that is the Middle East. I mean, this is something out of the book of Revelations, man. I just cannot believe what we are seeing and the frenzy on social media that it is creating. What you're seeing behind me is footage just released today of President Lukashenko of Belarus visiting a newly refurbished nuclear bunker. Yes, you heard correct. The president of Belarus visiting a newly refurbished nuclear bunker. I have to wonder, why were those Polish generals, why did they resign today? There was some sort of dispute with the government there, and there's election coming up. Guys, I got a real bad feeling about what is coming. Okay? This stuff that is going on in the Baltics right now with the attack on this pipeline here, get a load of this. Finland-Estonia gas pipeline may have been deliberately damaged by Russia. I've been warning people about this for days, for weeks, that they need an attack on NATO to further justify more intervention and more funding in Ukraine because they were losing support. Even if they didn't have this incident, though, they had the genius idea now, and I said they were going to do this too. I said, White House considers adding Ukraine to Israeli aid package. How ingenious is that? Because what they're going to do is they're going to bundle it all together. And nobody in their right mind, unless they want to commit career self-deletion at this point in time, is going to go against more aid for Israel. People are like rabid dogs right now. They are foaming at the mouth. I've never seen such an overnight divisive tactic foisted on the masses. And I've been an internet super sleuth for the last 20 years. I've never seen what we've seen in the last 72 hours. I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that the governments of the world, as incompetent as they may be, they are stocking up. One of our primary suppliers of preparedness wholesale food is getting contracts out the yin-yang from the government to prepare for something massive, okay? I can tell you beyond a shadow of a doubt that there are insane anomalies right now. I am more than convinced that we are somewhere between DEFCON 3 and DEFCON 2. No exaggeration whatsoever. Everything is mapping on perfectly to what you would see in the run-up to a massive clash of nuclear titans. Here is what we got to talk about. Take a look at this. This is the pipeline that connects Finland and Estonia. I'm going to be bouncing around the map, so if you are seizure prone or if you get motion sickness, I'm sorry. You're just going to have to listen to me in the background. I got 10 pages of material today. There is so much. I've never had a day for the last 2 years where there has been so much news that my head is just going to explode. You know, maybe that's why I got the cowboy hat on, just so I don't get this place too messy. But right now, before winter, isn't it surprising that the hybrid war is beginning? This is the Baltic Connector. And the fact that it is now possibly destroyed, the price of natural gas has skyrocketed. Some people believe that this whole war is just a resource war to see who will dominate the energy future, and that liquefied natural gas from the United States is the primary motive, okay, in order to have this war at all. And if you remember Nord Stream, of course, they sort of kind of blame that on the Russians, but, you know, they just kind of hope that people would look other way. But now they're saying Finland and Estonia gas pipeline may have been deliberately damaged by Russia. So get a load of this. And this is of critical importance because, number one, the Baltics have been heavily fortified by NATO as of recent. Even the Russians have reinstituted a new military district on that front. They are starting to reallocate military forces towards the Baltics in anticipation of some major escalation between NATO. So this is all significant. If the Baltics can't get cheap gas, that means their economy goes into the crapper. So it is likely that the damage of both the gas pipe and the communication cable is a result of external activity. They're not saying some anchor, accidentally drudged it over. No, they are saying that this same Russian ship that they claim confirmed to be in the vicinity of the Nord Stream explosion was also in and around the Baltic Connector pipeline. Now, what does that mean, really? I mean, does it mean that it passed by it once? Who knows how they're trying to frame this? Now, they're saying that they had a conversation with NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg today. You remember that guy, the one who refused to conduct an investigation on the Nord Stream? He says that they are ready to assist in the investigation. They're right there, right on time. And what a surprise, man. I am not surprised at all. Guys, they need a reason to get us in this war. The attack on the adjacent country to NATO of Israel may not be sufficient. They need a full-scale hybrid war. Now, I'm not saying this wasn't the Russians. It very well could be. This could be what the Russians are doing now, waging this war on Europe while we look the other way and we silently back out the door. But I don't think so. I think that this is all just a delivery system for even more weapons and what we're going to see in Ukraine, because Germany today comes out with a $1.1 billion. Okay, for Germany, that's big. $1.1 billion military aid package comprised of Patriot missiles, more tanks. They are arming Ukraine to the teeth, and they need to be, because the Russians continue to push hard there, and nobody is talking about the new battle that is taking place around Bakhmut. It is massive. This may well be one of the death blows, at least on that particular front of the conflict for Ukraine. Now, where do I even begin? Yes, we haven't even begun yet, and it's 7 minutes into the video. I got to share some insider information with you. Now, I've been warning you guys about the asymmetrical nature of strategic warfare and nuclear warfare. And I recently got an email that piqued my interest ado with GPS jamming. And the idea is that they're testing GPS jamming capabilities. This is in the United States because GLONASS is the Russian equivalent of GPS, and it, in many respects, is what is going to assist in the precise targeting of strategic nuclear missiles. Okay, so if you haven't seen that video, you really have to go back to it because it's very detailed, and I don't want to go on a wicked tangent. I already got enough news to cover here today. But all you need to know is that the GPS jamming exercises that are done in the United States have been ramping up a lot. This means that the military is conducting a lot of testing. It's likely just another indication that we're at a higher state of DEFCON, okay? Now, here's one of the messages that I received. I work in the blank Center for blank Courier Organization here in blank city. I just want to keep this person anonymous. Here are the latest jamming reports for GPS, and they provided me with about 5 PDF attachments. We get them from the FAA all the time. If our pilots report that their GPS is inoperable, we have to check their position, flight path against the jamming notices. We used to get 1 or 2 a month. Now we get multiple per month. Wrong. Multiple per day notices. Okay? So there is some sort of satellite hybrid warfare going on right now as we speak. Remember, this is what you would see in the run-up to nuclear Armageddon. Is this why Lukashenko is currently touring these nuclear bunkers? I don't know. All I know is that this is getting absolutely crazy. Now get a load of this. Another message I received is telling me that the Federal Aviation Administration, that there is heightened levels of VIP movement around the country that they are seeing right now. Now, I have no baseline to compare this to, but I'm not surprised. Can anybody be surprised at this point? You got senators with satellite phones. You got unprecedented emergency alert exercises happening around the world. Unprecedented levels of military mobilization happening today, okay? If you haven't seen my video, Signs that Nuclear War is About to Start, you need to go and check that out, because a lot of the boxes are getting checked right now. Case in point, moving American military objects abroad to higher level of combat readiness. Relocation of the most important people from leading U.S. government agencies to places especially equipped for their work under war conditions. Is that Raven Rock? Is that Cheyenne Mountain? Or some other undisclosed, dumb, deep underground military base? Evacuation of people close to the highest political leadership of the United States. The Ryan Report was something that the Russians created back during the Cold War. It was this compendium of about 100 different data points that they would look for if they were trying to detect whether or not the United States was about to do a first nuclear strike. These are just but a few of the things that we would see. And as you have every military on the planet descending right now on the Middle East with all of their military firepower, and you got Ben Shapiro arguing with Andrew Tate, two guys that only a few weeks ago were a little bit dissonant, but mostly in agreement. I'm telling you, man, this starts to look pre-planned. Now, I was having a chat today with a guy in Israel by the name of Rafi Farber. Now, we're not going to agree on everything, especially with respect to the Israeli situation. Nonetheless, he is on the ground. He happens to be an expert in Judeo-Christian studies, but also like a kind of a theologian / practitioner of the Torah and Judaic faith, but he's also an expert on global finance, okay? We were originally supposed to have that meeting, and it was supposed to be based around, because we booked this last week, and it was supposed to be do with what's happening with the economy. Of course, everything changed, and his agenda got slightly derailed, to say the least. He's near the Golan Heights, and as we were speaking, we have sirens going off in the background, and just today we hear that there was fire exchange between Syria and Israel, okay? Now, he was telling me all about end times prophecy as it pertains to Judaic faith, and I guess I'm gonna spill the beans a little bit here. He claims that we got about 4 to 5 months before this prophecy is fulfilled. Now, I don't put a whole lot of stock in religious prophecy. I'm an empiricist, okay? I am not somebody who, I don't think you need that at this point in time. There's plenty of evidence to suggest that we are in a period of quickening, there's another religious term, an acceleration of crises events, just one after the other. The dominoes are falling. You don't need religion, but I tell you, he makes some compelling arguments for what is going down right now. So I just figured I'd throw my Christian eschatological crowd a bone there. Do with it what you will, and let's keep talking about what is going on. Now, geez, my voice is losing. My voice is getting lost here. Finland, sabotage. We already talked about that. We talked about the Belarusian nuclear bunkers being surveyed. We talked about mortar fire from Syria into Israel. We have a Russian Ilyushin plane off the coast of Israel right now. And guess what else is nearing the coastline of Israel in the eastern part of the Mediterranean? Well, that is that strike carrier group, the Gerald Ford, the largest aircraft carrier in the U.S. military or the Navy arsenal. It is on its way, and now they're even thinking about sending a second one. Now, part of my conversation with Rafi was about what this was all about. And he believes, as do I, that somebody knew something about something before something happened, okay? And that this was this coordinated, sudden response. You know, it seems too good to be true from a military-industrial complex point of view, that they would be instantly seizing upon this opportunity to really kickstart another full-scale war. We may see a clash between Russia and NATO in the Mediterranean first, and then possibly in the Black Sea second. Right now, there appears to be this rift growing between Turkey and NATO. Erdogan is in a very tough spot. This is a predominantly Muslim nation. And Erdogan today came out condemning the Israelis. Did I just close? No, this is the one right here. Condemning the Israelis for their indiscriminate bombardment and complete disregard for international law. Okay, every possible war crime, whether it was the use of illegal weaponry, the severance of critical infrastructure to a population, the targeting of civilians, all of these things apparently are being broken right now. And this is according to the UN. Okay, they just brought this up today, and they've accused Israel of committing war crimes already. This is the UN. This is not me saying this. So moderators out there, I am just the purveyor of information. Turkey may well switch sides. We may see those nuclear weapons pulled out of Turkey if they're not already out of there already. We have Greece putting its navy on standby, sending its navy out to sea. Okay, getting ready for what may well be World War III. Remember, one of the things that you would see before nuclear war is everybody sending their military forces far and wide, separating it. We've covered thousands of data points in the last year and a half in the run-up to this culmination of events that shows you that the militaries of Europe, NATO, and now increasingly more so the East are preparing for a massive clash. Saudi Arabia is ending normalization talks with Israel. They too have no choice, because right now there is an uprising happening in the Muslim world, and this is going to create chaos. We are going to see some insane events. I really do fear that we're going to see some active shooter scenarios, the likes of which we've never seen before, unfortunately, in NATO countries as a result of all of this hatred towards one another that we are seeing that has been brought to the surface by this one little strip of land in the Middle East. It is absolutely incredible to me. But you're seeing the consolidation of the Muslim world around what's happening there in the Gaza Strip. You're seeing massive protests on a scale never before seen in Jordan, which is supposed to be a very pro-Western country. Okay, a lot of people think the King Abdullah, or whatever the hell his name is there, just panders to the Western elites. But the pictures coming out of there are nothing short of astonishing. Okay, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, possibly, maybe not that many, but definitely in the tens of thousands, because it's not the most populous country, rallying around this. So you have every single Muslim country becoming activated right now. And Erdogan and the Saudi prince, they know what will happen if they don't distance themselves from this and call this out. This could be the flashpoint. And Rafi says we only got 4 to 5 months left, and he says that everything maps onto that, whether you look at it just from the perspective of the global financial system and the reverse repos basically running out in the next 4 to 5 months, and the market melt up and hyperinflation that's about to ensue when the Fed is forced to basically drop its pants and drop interest rates, and that the whole thing is just going to crash at the same time. I tell you, man, what a time to be alive. You have Hamas calling for worldwide mobilization this Friday in support of Gaza. Hamas has called for those in Arab and Islamic world to show their support come after thousands of Palestinian supporters descended on the Israeli embassy. I want to say explicitly, anybody who harms innocent children, anybody who murders innocent children should suffer an excruciatingly painful death, okay? And I'm not calling for violence or anything like that. I'm just saying in response to some of the tragedies that have unfolded in Israel and even on the side of Gaza, who is now being bombarded heavily. There's way more casualties than are being reported there. Many of those people are under the age of 18. We're talking about children here. If there's anything that makes me mad, it's when I see innocent children killed in war. And I just hope that justice is exacted, but retribution and disproportionate amounts of revenge that only are going to beget more violence, that is not the way to solve the world's problems. That's all I'm going to say on the preacher front today, okay? We have Emmanuel Macron claiming that Iran is complicit. Emmanuel Macron said Tuesday it's likely that Iran helped Hamas in carrying out its deadly terrorist attack on Israel. The Western allies have yet to provide definitive proof. And I think the reason why they're not calling it out yet, they know that the Iranian military is already on a heightened state of combat readiness. They always have to be with respect to what's going on in the Persian Gulf and the buildup of U.S. military forces there. If you want to know what's going on there, you just look at the various naval carrier strike groups in position. We have the Baton and the Pat Forsois in and around the Persian Gulf, and now we have the Gerald R. Ford pretty much at its destination in the Mediterranean. So we know they're on a heightened state of alert. I think they're trying to play pretend. They don't want to escalate this thing before they have all the playing pieces in place. Remember, the United States military has many troops throughout the Middle East, not many as far as the numbers that we're hearing coming out of Russia by any stretch of the means, but they do have a lot of bases. They have dozens of bases. They have tens of thousands of troops from Kuwait to Bahrain to Qatar, Oman, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Syria, Turkey. They have bases abound in all of these places, and many of these bases are in countries that they may just have to abandon, just like they did Afghanistan. Turkey and Saudi Arabia being a couple of those countries. Countries which I should add are not wanting to trade in US dollars anymore. No matter how you slice it, we are at a crossroads. This is the beginning of something new. I told people yesterday that I have contacts within the preparedness industry who cater to the Department of Defense, who manufacture MREs. They manufacture freeze-dried food, they prepare freeze-dried food, MREs, for the government, and the contracts that they are seeing dwarf anything that they've seen before. And in addition to that, just one of these orders is more than the entirety of their budget for the year, or the orders that they've received thus far this year. That is the scale of preparation that is currently underway, and that's just what they're getting from one company, okay? Now, I'm not going to advise people to go and prepare, because that's what we've been saying every single frickin' day. I've got 10 videos ado with preparedness related topics that I just haven't released, because there's simply, this is too important. Communicating the imminence of the situation is too important at this point in time, and everything else that we try to release right now, people are just not in a place to receive it, because people want information, and I totally understand. But don't think that we are just, just talking. We're walking the walk as well. Netanyahu, according to the New York Times, says that he would go it alone on a strike against Iran. Well, there is no Israel going alone on anything, just like there is no Ukraine going alone on anything. When you have your military by and large funded by the United States through whatever sort of arrangement they have there. You have U.S. technology. You probably got the nukes from the United States. I mean, where else? Did Israel do nuclear testing? Did I miss something? Apparently they have up to 400 nuclear warheads. You don't get that on your own. This is not to take away from the efforts of people in Israel in terms of their technological sophistication. It's just a reality, okay? They only do something if U.S. gives the green light, because the U.S. is the one who's going to have to deal with the aftermath. Now, take a look at this exchange between the Ayatollah and the Israeli government. Israeli government says it's easy to be brave when you're hiding behind a keyboard. So practically trolling the Ayatollah. You and your Hamas friends will regret your barbaric actions very soon. So that's a direct threat against the Iranian Ayatollah, the supreme leader of Iran. And here's what he has to say. Heads of the Zionist regime and their backers should know that the massacre and mass murder of the people of Gaza will cause a larger calamity to come upon them. 2.3 million views, probably at around 5 million at this point in time, my friends. If you need any more confirmation that the shit is hitting the fan around the world, then you're going to be one of those people that, is told to leave and doesn't leave until the last minute, and you get stuck holding the bag. Only in this instance, it's going to be you meeting your demise. Now, what else do we need to talk about? Nuclear sniffer plane off the Indian coast. Greece is mobilizing their Navy. Hamas mobilizing on Friday, October 14th. Talked about that. We talked about the GPS jamming as well. I think I talked a little bit about VIPs being scuttled around. So there is a massive uptick in VIP transfers. When there's a VIP that's on a plane, apparently, the Federal Aviation Administration releases a memo that suggests or that basically tells airports to expect VIP movement on such and such a date, and that pilots can expect temporary airspace restrictions in conjunction with that movement. So this is just another indication, and that there's way more of these than are normal. Again, I have no baseline or awareness or knowledge of these kind of things to compare this to. This is information I am receiving. Take it with a grain of salt, but it maps on perfectly well with what we are seeing here, okay? Netanyahu has formed an emergency government. The Israeli Broadcasting Authority reported Tuesday, October 10, 2023, that the heads of the government coalition in Tel Aviv unanimously supported the formation of an emergency government and authorized Netanyahu to work on its formation in conjunction with the war waged by the occupation against the Palestinian resistance. Never say that Netanyahu had nothing to gain from somebody looking the other way, which is a nice segue into the next point. Egyptian intelligence official says Israel ignored repeated warnings of something big. Something big this way cometh, and Israel just apparently looked the other way. Now, of course, Israel has denied this, and they're not really on good terms with Egypt as well, because they are threatening, not only threatening, but they are targeting the points of egress, the only places that these Palestinians can essentially leave the area. They are targeting it. You have people calling for ethnic cleansing, people calling for genocide of the area. I'm not saying that's what the Israeli government is doing, but they are most definitely, if they ever wanted to create some doubt about that, well, they're doing the complete opposite, okay? Everything they're doing and saying is someday going to be referenced in the history books, I think. Again, you will not get salvation through retribution. You will only get salvation through justice. And if we just continue this cycle, and what they're about to do in Gaza, if they are successful, is going to trigger a worldwide Muslim rebellion. I'm not a Muslim. I'm not a religious person. I'm an agnostic. I'm giving you it how I see it, as objective as I can. And they're even threatening to target convoys of aid coming not only from Egypt, but they're threatening to target convoys of aid coming from Jordan. So you have a population of 2 million people. The average age is 18. They have no food, no water, no electricity, and nowhere to go. And now they are trying to target the places of egress, and they're even targeting the aid that is coming in there. Now, people are going to say, well, humanitarian corridors are historically utilized in order to funnel weapons in. And while that is the case, you know, what are you going to do? Are you going to just massacre 2 million people? So, guys, this is going to elicit so much division, and you are going to see, and this is why everybody has to be very, very safe in public places right now. Because I think something really, really nasty this way cometh. If not World War III, we are going to see civil unrest on a scale that we've never seen. Never mind low intensity conflict. It's going to be moderate intensity. There's going to be things flaring up. It's going to be another jihad, another intifada, whatever you want to call it. It's not going to be good, okay? And it's very, very hard to just sit idly by and not say something, because what the Israelis are about to do is going to trigger a response that is not going to be well received. As horrific and absolutely appalling as the events were that unfolded there, we could not allow this to suck us into a global conflict. I said I was not going to preach, and here I go preaching again. Netanyahu and friends claim that there will be no rules and that they will essentially violate any Geneva Convention that they want. The UN has already claimed that Israel's sieges on Gaza are prohibited under humanitarian law. So, I mean, the shit's gonna hit the fan, man. It's hitting the fan for people who are there. That is for sure. King Abdullah II of Jordan, in coordination with the Egyptian government, has reportedly ordered the delivery of humanitarian aid to Gaza through the Rafah border crossing. However, the IDF is continuing to state that any supply trucks that attempt to enter the Gaza Strip through Egypt will be destroyed. I've never seen people so fired up on social media doing battle over this issue. It is something to see, especially people like Mr. Ben Shapiro and Andrew Tate, who are just not buddies, but they were adjacent a few weeks ago. Now, forget it. They're at each other's throats because, of course, the Tates are Muslims. And if you really want to get the people fighting, it's one thing. Nationalism will do it to a degree, but nothing can get people riled up and as blood drunk as religion. Okay? There is going to be a bloodletting around the world, regardless of whether it goes nuclear. Brett Weinstein said it best. All right. So we potentially have a second aircraft carrier en route to the Middle East. The U.S. may deploy a second aircraft carrier near Israel. U.S. defense officials said an escalation of the U.S. military effort to deter regional powers from joining the war between Hamas and Israel. Why the hell do you need, okay, if you're just dealing with Hamas, even Hezbollah, and you got 400 planes that are Gen 4 and up, you got nuclear weapons, you got billions in military, why the hell do you need two massive aircraft carrier strike groups descending into the Mediterranean, unless you're planning on going to a greater war with Russia and possibly Turkey when they eventually do turn? Turkey's going to be one of those, they're going to be like Russia in World War II. You know, they're going to start off as kind of allies and then they're going to switch sides, I think. Because Turkey is at a crossroads. Its predominantly Muslim population is going to demand some sort of action which will force them from distancing themselves from NATO. And that is bad news for NATO because Turkey has one of the biggest militaries. They also have one of the worst cases of inflation, and they're still reeling from that massive earthquake, among other things. But nonetheless, if you have Turkey who allies itself with Russia, then we are in big, big trouble. Things are popping off in Syria. They're popping off in Lebanon. It's only a matter of time before shit goes down in the Persian Gulf as well. And I do think that they're about to do something crazy in the Black Sea. I think there's going to be another provocation at a Russian naval port or at the Crimean Bridge. Something is going to happen there as well. So do not take your eyes off of that. We have the Houthis from Yemen saying that they are going to get involved in the war. Every Muslim faction around the world is going to get involved in the war. This will probably unite Sunni, Shiites, and whatever else is out there under the umbrella of Islam together in a way that, you know, we've never seen before. And that is the problem. This is why you have to be very measured in your response. Because just like Vietnam, every time you took out one of those villagers, those innocent bystanders, 10 of their relatives got really, really pissed off. It's like pulling weeds, okay? If you don't pull it properly, right, it's going to just spread, and you're going to get 10 times as many weeds. The leader of the Yemen Shiite Iran-backed Houthi movement, Abdul Malik al-Houthi, well, I did not too bad on that one, warned today that if the United States intervenes directly in the Gaza war, his organization will respond with missiles, drones, and other military options. So you're going to see a massive proxy war against Israel pretty damn soon, because it looks like that offensive into the Gaza Strip is going to happen very, very quickly. And it is going to divide us in a way that I don't think we've seen in some time. Hezbollah has also threatened the USA. Hamas and Hezbollah began to threaten the United States. The terrorists say that if the U.S. intervenes in the war, they will start bombing their military bases. All of those military bases I showed you throughout here, they're the first to get murked by Iran and its proxies. In addition to that, Iran closes the Persian Gulf. For some reason right now, oil has not factored this in, the price of oil. But if we're seeing these attacks on critical infrastructure, if they're closing down the Gulf, the Strait of Hormuz, and that's where 20% of the world's oil flows through, and they're just not able to ship through there, or there's some weird bottleneck that happens, then the price of energy is going to skyrocket, and it's going to do so around winter time. This will collapse the European markets and any market that relies on foreign energy sources, which is the better part of Europe. Greece, maximum state of combat readiness. If you don't know, there's a rift between Greece and Turkey over the Aegean Islands. This is another fissure in NATO, okay? Turkey is really at a crossroads. They really got to pick a side soon, because I have a feeling, you know, they could find themselves. I mean, they're still in a better position than somebody like Russia. At least they can still kind of go either way. But what they might end up doing is pissing both sides off at some point and have no friends. But it's looking like Syria could get involved. Again, Israel has threatened to target Damascus to take out Assad, if that's even possible. And of course, the Russians will respond to that. And we will see the Russians come to the support of the Syrians, and they're going to fight Israel via proxy, via Syria. And all of this stuff is going to happen in the Middle East, as it always does. Okay, we have a U.S. military carrier group in South Korea. A U.S. carrier strike group began drills in the maritime interdiction tactics with warships from South Korea and Japan this week, the first such exercise by the three navies in 7 years. The Ronald Reagan carrier strike group, led by aircraft carrier U.S. Ronald Reagan, took part in the two-day exercise starting Monday. Now, it's important to note that the North Koreans have suspended a military pact. The North Koreans, who support Palestine, they support Syria, they're sending weapons to the Russians, and of course, North Korea is largely covertly funded by the Chinese. You see where this is going? This is World War III, okay? South Korea on alert for possible North Korea action after Israel-Hamas conflict. And the South Korea's defense minister said he will push to suspend a 2018 inter-Korean military agreement in order to resume frontline surveillance on rival North Korea, as the surprise attack on Israel by Hamas has raised concerns about similar assaults from the north. I don't know where they get that from. Like, they think North Korea is just going to copy Hamas. I don't know. I mean, you got to remember that these are nuclear nations as well. And I say South Korea is a nuclear nation because right now the United States has nuclear missiles there. And I should also add that these aircraft carriers being sent into the Mediterranean have nuclear missiles on them. Not that they need it, because we have 400 nuclear weapons in Israel. Speaking of which, I would not be surprised if we hear something in the news about the security of Israeli nuclear weapons as this thing continues to spiral out of control. We have flights suspended at a London airport after another large car fire. You remember that large EV car fire? They didn't really, not sure if they really disclosed the actual cause of the fire, but I think it was in Uzbekistan, a country who does the majority of their business with the Russians. That's their primary trading partner. That massive airport mushroom cloud that we've seen. Well, apparently that happened in London. We have Germany suspending flights over threats of Iranian terrorist activity, which turned out to be a nothing burger, but just another sign of the times. You're seeing the divide between the Muslim and European world, and you're going to see domestic unrest. You're going to see crazy shit happening on all sides. You're going to see the radicalization of people on the right. You're going to see the radicalization in response to the religious radicalization. You're going to have nationalism, okay? And then this is just going to feed, and it's going to create more populist movements, which are going to bring in more charismatic leaders that tell people what they want to hear in a very convincing and confident way. Somebody made a point yesterday. I heard it in a space on Twitter. The difference between Bakhmut and Gaza. And you're seeing these buildings just getting leveled, okay, completely destroyed, obliterated, annihilated. You don't see that in the war with Russia and Ukraine, which tells you that the Russians are meticulously approaching this situation. That this is a special military operation and not the wholesale bombardment. Now, that's partly due to the fact that the Ukraine had a significant arsenal of missile defense and Russian Soviet-era missile defense, which is apparently quite good, that they've now started to supplement with Western defensive systems like the Patriot system. But it shows us either the building codes in the West Bank, in the Gaza Strip just aren't that good, and these primarily concrete, non-steel frame buildings probably just can't hold up to a lot of abuse. Because it's very hard to get parts to build stuff in there. I don't even know how the people in Gaza live, to be brutally honest. They make do with what they have somehow, even though the population there has nearly doubled since like 2008. So, but what we're seeing is a clear difference in the outcome, in the images. Even Bakhmut, one of the most fought for territories, doesn't look like places in the Gaza Strip. Just like this, I have to be careful with what I show here, but completely leveled. This is the level of indiscriminate, it's very easy. Sometimes I think the West just likes playing on easy mode. You have this landlocked group of 2 million people who are largely defenseless for the most part. They're at the helm of, or they're at the mercy, I suppose you could say, of Hamas, who has weapons that are being funneled in by Iran and other surrounding Muslim countries who support them. And people will say, well, they vote them in, so therefore they're culpable. I'm not even going to debate anything about that. I will say, though, that, this is not, until they go in and they do the urban portion of this, the actual ground invasion, what they're doing right now takes no courage whatsoever. Anybody can just push a button and lob missiles, okay? This is not bravery. And I'm not saying you have to be brave, but this is the war we like to fight. Whereas what's happening in Ukraine, that's a real war. That's a high-intensity conflict where it's trench warfare. It's guys in tanks. And while the Hamas terrorists, for lack of a better term here, are, well, in many respects they are, in the offensive sense. Geez, it's so hard to not step on somebody's toes here, guys. I'm trying to walk that line, and it's very, very difficult. But I think you get what I'm trying to say. They are having some success in taking out Israeli tanks with drones and anti-tank weapons. But by and large, this is as one-sided as it gets. You have an aircraft carrier on one side, a nuclear superpower on the other, and no air defense. And it's just like shooting fish in a barrel, okay? It's playing the game on easy mode. That's what I call it. Okay, we talked about that. We talked about U.S. officials threatening oil refineries. Let me just see if we got more videos. Okay, so this guy, this is a Russian Zhirinovsky. In 2024, the Middle East conflict will break out and everybody will forget what Ukraine is because Iran is not the DPRK or Vietnam or Kosovo. This is where the most terrible events will take place. We're talking about World War III, he claims. So another person predicting that all eyes are going to be taken off of what is happening in Russia, Ukraine right now, and they're going to be focused on Iran. Again, the only way this situation spirals into World War III is going to be if Russia gets involved and they start lobbing nuclear weapons in defense of the Muslim states. That's the only way World War III comes about, and it's probably going to come about in Syria in some way, shape, or form. Zelensky was a little disappointed. Apparently, he went to Romania today. He wasn't able to speak to the parliament. People are chalking that up to being a failure. I don't think so. I think there's just so much other stuff going on that the obligatory, gratuitous appeal to the Romanian parliament is just unnecessary at this point. The juice ain't worth the squeeze. They probably know they're going to get the support they need. There is definitely things being cooked up in and around that region of the Black Sea, but they got to get through the Bosphorus Strait if they want to send their naval forces. They need the permission of Turkey to enter the Black Sea. So they got to stay in Turkey's good books or else it's going to be bad. Now this guy, Mikhail Podolyak, advisor to the head of the office in Ukraine, and I'll just read the transcript here because he's speaking in Ukrainian. As for what we see in the Middle East, we see the absolute presence of Russia. Of course, it will need to be proven in terms of planning and operations. So they go a step further. It's not just Iran. They're saying that Russia is the one who's orchestrating all of this stuff. In terms of approaches, we see high quality intelligence that the people who carried out attacks on Israel would need. I'm just going to finish the sentence, fill in the blanks of the translation. Would need in order to conduct such an operation, right? We see the synchronization of the use of drones for military purposes. The same tactics are used in Ukraine. The handwriting is visible. So they are saying that Hamas is utilizing some tactics that they've seen, either maybe it was the Wagner group in there, maybe it was some elements of the Russian military who are training these guys. But what they're saying is the same tactics are being deployed. And you can even see that in the footage of grenades and whatever type of bomb they're using to drop from drones onto Merkava tanks. We're already seeing the same footage. It's becoming harder and harder to tell if you're looking at footage in Ukraine versus Israel, besides the desert part. This is just a series of ambulances from Egypt heading towards Gaza. Egypt now being burdened with having to bring in 2 million refugees, and everybody is saying, well, why doesn't Egypt just take the 2 million refugees at the drop of a hat? Egypt, a population which is exploding, totally dependent on, mostly dependent, I should say, on foreign sources of food to supplement. They don't produce enough food to feed themselves. They are a net importer of food. They have this booming population, which may benefit them in the future, but for now, especially when you have the Nile River that's not really doing so well, and you got disputes over that with some other African countries, and Egypt may turn on Israel, because if one of these convoys gets hit by an Israeli missile, people aren't going to take too kindly to that. And all of these nations, the problem is is that whether or not the ruling elites within these nations are going to fall in lockstep with NATO's plan. I'm talking about Jordan, I'm talking about Egypt and other countries, Saudi Arabia. Even if they are wanting to do that and willing to do that because that makes more financial sense for them to do so, their population of predominantly Muslim people is going to demand that they do something. And this is going to push us towards conflict. This is why when you fight fire with fire, fighting fire with fire is okay, I suppose, but fighting fire with 10 times the amount of fire is only going to create a much bigger blowback in the end. So that's why, you know, this is all written in the stars, man. Check out my video, Signs That Nuclear War is About to Start. I'm going to tell you right now, wholesale freeze-dried foods and us, we are behind in orders right now. Because if you haven't realized it yet, this could very well be it. So if you do place an order for preparedness items, just know there might be a bit of a delay. We're working our butts off 24/7, especially through September. It was just madness and we are delayed. But as I've always said, we will guarantee, it's not that we've forgotten your order, it's just that there are some massive delays right now because we are so backed up and we cannot find enough casual staff right now to help us. So it is what it is. It's probably going to get a lot worse. We're about one major incident away now, I would say, from just a global panic ensuing. And, you know, with the Russian-Ukraine thing, yeah, you know, that would have been enough to do it. But now with this, you throw this in the mix, and then you still have the economy tanking on the other end of things. Any day now, shit could go down. Shit really could go down. And we're seeing all of the boxes get checked. So please, if you haven't done so already, get yourself squared away. This is the age of consequences. I've been saying it for a long time. No matter how many times my predictions come true, usually when I make a prediction, it manifests, but in a different way. Like at the beginning of the pandemic, I said that, you know, there was going to be riots, but I thought it was going to be as a result of the collapse of the rule of law as a result of the pandemic. It came, but it just manifested in another way, right? And so we're seeing the same thing happen. It's just like a lot of these predictions that we preppers are making, they're all coming true. They're just popping up in a different way. They're manifesting in a way that we didn't originally see. And the same thing with my prediction about an attack on NATO. Okay, it's come true today with the undersea natural gas pipeline that connects Finland to the Baltics, but even the manifestation in Israel. I mean, that was it. That's exactly what the military-industrial complex needed to keep the money flowing. They needed that to happen. So, hey, you know, when you got your nose in this stuff all day, you tend to be on point about a thing or two. I'm really curious to see where this is going to go. This Ben Shapiro, Andrew Tate stuff. And just the divisiveness in general. Worldwide sugar shortage due to extreme weather threatening Halloween candy prices. Well, maybe there's going to be something good coming out of this global collapse situation. After all, everybody's going to be forced to lose a little bit of weight. I'm still on that carnivore diet, and boy, do I love it. Boy, do I feel good. I'm telling you guys, if you want to feel good and just you know, get rid of the brain fog, have more energy. You don't have to go strict carnivore diet, but just up your protein intake, reduce your carbs, reduce your fats, do some intermittent fasting, try to get lots of rest, and I guarantee you, you're going to be primed and ready for the proverbial end of days. I think that's all I got to say. You guys let me know what you think about all this in the comment section below. Get your gear while the getting is good. because we're just a few days away from what may well be a nationwide global Muslim uprising. And what that looks like, it could get ugly. Make sure you have gas masks. Make sure you have a means of self-defense. Means of self-defense. Right now, do it. Do it while you can. Even if